I swear, every time this fucking works, it's a fucking miracle. I get the streaming software set up. If you haven't, I don't know, if you haven't streamed before like me, I'm a YouTuber. I don't know if you've heard that. You have the streaming software running on your computer, and then you stream. I stream to Periscope, and I stream to, YouTube. My high school friends don't care about what I'm saying, so that's not really, but kind of. So I stopped streaming on Facebook, and I stopped streaming on Twitch because one viewer a week isn't really worth it. So, but every time it works, you start streaming, you have to wait a couple minutes to see if the stream is working, and then YouTube just gave me an error this time that I've never seen before. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you can hear this, and I'm glad everything's working. So we're all good. Okay, so this is the prophesized fucking, we got a new setup. For those that watch on YouTube, not as many people watch on YouTube as listen on the podcast, unless the podcast is a bunch of Russian bots. That's chill too. Thank you for listening. We got I just moved to Venice here, so we got kind of a new setup. I also might just record at the beach, walk to the beach and fucking set up kind of on the sand with the ocean behind me, people walking around. I think that's cool. You know what I dig? I dig people walking behind. Like, I dig you being able to see cars go by. I've always wanted a setup like this. I've always liked a setup where people are kind of walking around and you can kind of, if you're watching the video, you can kind of see what's going on around me. I think that's a cool setup. So we'll see if I do that. And the reason I'm even thinking about that is, turns out I didn't have the internet installed. It took a few days to install the internet at the new place. So I was using a hotspot on my phone. See, there's a bus go by and a car go by. I love it. I love that. Let's see if you can hear the sound of the city. Hear that? That's kind of chill. Yeah, I've been having a hotspot from my device, and it's crazy actually how much it worked, and I didn't even notice. It was basically the same as a regular internet connection. Granted, I was chewing through the data, but a couple gigs a day, not much. But yeah, it's crazy. So now I'm like, well, this opens up the possibilities. I don't need to just be on Wi-Fi to do this. I need to I can hotspot it out of the beach, and the only issue is battery life. I think this laptop can last an hour. I think the phone can last an hour. Anyway, so we're experimenting here. I still don't have a new camera. I don't know if I need one, but yeah, we got this set up. So if you don't watch on YouTube, it's kind of, you might want to check that out if you want something to look at while we're riffing here. Okay, let's dive right into what we're going to riff on today. Okay, we're going to riff on uncertainty and leaning on history, the increasing difference of decades, crypto price increases, yawn. One reason the super wealthy invest differently than us. I know if I was going to say differently than you or us, but if I said you, I'm not super wealthy, so differently than you, it felt like a slap in the face to those read that. Than us. TikTok and Trump's anti-capitalist tendencies. I think a lot. Yeah, we'll riff on that. I always get right into it and read this. Crypto's ownership economy. Jesse Walden had an epic piece. I've been trying to talk about it for 3 weeks, but it keeps getting pushed beyond the fold. The internet and community. Sam Altman had a tweet. I think it's worth riffing on. Signal in Hong Kong. Signal's the not the cryptocurrency. The end-to-end encrypted app that I keep talking about. The world's playbook for China and unnecessary American death. So we'll see if we even get to all this. Yeah. So okay, we're in the new setup. We're recording live from Venice, California. I'm pumped about it. We're all moved in here. Still waiting for Pa and his girlfriend, but it's all chill. Okay. So yeah, it's been interesting. Walking around here, it's been kind of, when you get to a new place, you're like, oh, what's going on? Like, I'm writing everyone's name down and shit, like to try to remember like the people around, who's working at the restaurant down there. Shout out Katrina and Heather. It's like, you just know the people around you. Know the people. That's a good title for the podcast, actually. Know the people around you. Anyway, we were at the beach, me and Pup, and someone just walked up in classic Venice, dude. Venice, it's kind of got a thing about it. But just walked up to us, and she wasn't wearing a mask. I was ready to drop her. This woman was 75 years old. I was ready to drop her. She was walking up to us with kind of a dazed look. This was like patient zombie zero. I was like, here it comes. She's about to come. I was ready, and then she stopped about 8 feet out, 10 feet out, so it was all good. But I was gonna drop her. Anyway, then she walks up and just says, "Love is stillness within. Love is stillness within." I was gonna make the title of this podcast that, but I thought people would, wouldn't be, I don't know, it'd be like, it was going to be kind of a joke, but if I say that in the pod, people are going to think I'm a total hardo. So anyway, so it's been chill. Oh, also, so that's been fun. You can tell that, first of all, you can tell I'm kind of riffing about other shit right now. I'll be straight up. I've been working like a dog lately. And shout out Mac Buckley for feeding me a couple of the topics here. I haven't had as much time to read as I'd like. Read things, keep. Amy. Thanks, beautiful monkey. Haven't as much time, so I kind of, that's why I got the title leaning on history. So there's a lot of things that come through every week, come through the news ticker. You got, everyone subscribed to newsletters. You got your own news sources, your own fake news sources, your own uncles that give you news. But a lot of, partly why I don't want to get caught up in that daily churn. Well, number one, straight up, it's time consuming. Number two, I think it's harder to be right about it's certainly harder to be right about events that are unfolding currently. It's easier to take a step back and like I said, lean on history. So a lot of what grounds my thinking in things. Part of the reason that's why I'm not like a Republican or a Democrat, right? And everyone says that what intellectual says, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. I don't know, I guess some, but it's like, I don't, there's good sides on both, whatever. Lately the Republicans kind of need to find their party, and the Democrats too, with the whole Trumpism thing, but that's all good. Well, it's not all good, but it's all good for I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Anyway, I just look back at listen, I woke up in this world. I woke up in the United States. I woke up on this planet with this civilization of 7 billion people. And I don't look around and just start dogging on everything that, listen, a lot of the stuff that has that we're all born into has happened from our ancestors generations before. I'm getting meta on us. He's getting so it's like a lot of what grounds my thinking is, okay, what do we kind of know for sure? What is something that we kind of think is probably a good idea? And I use that to approach the kind of daily churn of news. Damn, it's actually distracting because I'm looking at myself in the cars. I gotta turn this to the side here. The daily churn of news, and it's like you can, a lot of reading, a lot of looking at things, looking at stories is not putting things in perspective. So a few things, we know, we kind of know for sure. I think, just an example, I think it's good for people to be individuals to be able to do what they want to do and live the lives they want to live, right? We don't need a monoculture. We don't need, a central authority. Most of the time, this is government, but inhibiting how people should live. I think you look at where's the best science, the best culture, the best music, the best art, the best everything, the best innovation. It's coming out of countries, and frankly, the best place where people want to live. It's coming out of countries where individuals. And if you're saying, well, doesn't everyone have that? Well, no, not everyone has that. Where individuals have the freedom to do what they want, have sex who they want to have sex with, say what they want to say, build what they want to build, start businesses they want to start, buy what they want to buy, talk to who they want to talk to. These are things. That's a fundamental thing that I just believe that is okay. I kind of frame a lot of my thinking through that, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier to deal with. You don't then need to process each event as it comes across the board. If you have these foundational things that you kind of rely on, and I say leaning on history, you can then, it's a lot easier to process how you're gonna. It kind of short circuits how you're gonna feel on a certain topic, which is epic, and it makes it easier processing. But that's why part of the reason I don't say I'm a Democrat or Republican. Well, I look back at this country. Okay, well, we've had Democrat presidents, we've had Democrat-controlled Congresses, we've had left-leaning judges, we have right-leaning judges, and we've kind of gone back. Pendulum swings, and it's gotten us to this point. And part of me is like, okay, well, if I'm a Democrat, do I just want to banish the Republican Party? If I'm a Republican, do I just want to banish the Democrat Party and think that my party is the only way? It's like, no, I don't. That's just an example, but okay. Ooh, whoops. Let me get to this. Shout out my homie Dylan Alexander. Okay, people coming out of the woodwork. He's a contributor on Patreon. If you don't know Patreon, there's a link in the YouTube show notes and podcast player. You can contribute to the show. Me and Chuck Finch, he's the producer. Those thumbnails that you see, that's also, if you don't watch on YouTube, you miss the thumbnails. So that's pretty epic. We kind of have some fun with the art. Kind of troll it, but kind of have fun with it. Kind of try to make a point, though, kind of all the things. Yeah, he became a Patreon. I get an email every time someone becomes a Patreon. He's a supporter, monthly contributor. He gives money every month to the show, and it's epic. Which, Chuck, I don't think I sent you this month yet. I don't know. I've been everything's all over the place. I need to send you money, but anyway, because we got half. We split with each other. He just out of nowhere. We talked about the show a few weeks. I ran with this guy when I was in like 4th grade. I competed with him in track and field when I was in like club, and we haven't really talked much since like 8th grade. Might be the last time I saw him, but he's on Facebook. I post on Instagram, and he sees those things, and he just reached out like a few months ago and said, "Dude, epic." I'm like, "Dude, epic." Anyone that listens to you, the way my success metric for this, it's so easy in the world of everything, million views and million subscribers and all that. I've got like 106, and that's chill. It's fine. If you think about it, I just always think of me being in a room, and this is something that the internet doesn't quite make as real. Let me take the jacket off here. But put it this way: if you have like 30 people that listen to your show a week, and it's about that, I think maybe between Periscope, YouTube, I don't know, 60 maybe. I don't really know, because what's a view count these days, and how much are they listening to it and all that. But if you imagine just 30 people in a room listening to you speak, that's a hell of a fucking big deal. Which is epic. It's a huge compliment. You go to a place and people are spending their time giving to you to do 30 people. If that's insane. So it's like, yeah, it'd be cool if this show kind of took off. Frankly, I don't have much time right now to kind of throw into it, but I think now that we're in the new setup, we can work with it. We can iterate a little bit on it. But frankly, I'm having a good time. It's sustainable. I just imagine if I did the same thing, didn't change anything about the show, if I did the same exact thing for 10 years, 55 minutes, me and you, every Wednesday, once a week for an hour, something's got to happen with it, right? Something's got to happen with it. So that's how I think about it. If I get 30 people in a room that are listening to me, listen to what I say, and then also, a few people text me, maybe one or two text me every week and send me a text like, "Yo, dude, they'll dog a point or support a point I said," and that's epic. So it's awesome. So Dylan, thank you for being a contributor. The Day One La Famiglia homies from back in the day. I appreciate it. You're my goat. By the way, this is one of the Patreon. You want a little shout out about you donate. You become a contributor. I'll do a little riff session with you at the beginning. Should have done it right at the beginning, but it's all chill. Okay. Boom, riffed on that here. Okay, so crypto is up. Matt Buckley, thanks for shouting this out. It's funny. I always find out that cryptocurrency is up. The price is up because people text me. And they'll say things like, "Dude, what's going on with crypto? Like, it's crazy." And it's always the same thing. The price of Bitcoin, the price of Ether, the price of a lot of these tokens. Honestly, it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then there's tokens built on Ethereum. Everything else, it's not. Everything else outside of that hasn't really, in my mind. There's this thing called Polkadot, which is interesting, from one of the founders of Ethereum. Maybe interesting. There's Coda, which is a really micro blockchain kind of thing. It's supposed to be like a few kilobytes or something. I think it does some roll-up technology to make that possible. I don't exactly know. But there's other things, and I'm super excited for that. I'm not married to Ethereum. If something gets launched tomorrow that's better than, okay, boom, I have no allegiance to Ethereum. I just think it's super cool. And that's where the people are building right now. Wherever the devs are building, it's funny, speaking of building, every 6 months, I'm like, okay, let me try to mess with Ethereum. And I like fire up, the IDE, use, what is Microsoft IDE? VS Code, and I just can't do it. It's just a nightmare. It's just, the tooling's not there. It's just a fucking nightmare. There's not like great guides on it. I'm like, I can't even get a hello world to fucking run. You got to set up the local blockchain to run on your computer. It's like a local server that mimics the blockchain. Then you got to, it's hilarious. So then every 6 months, just close the laptop. Okay, move on. I'll revisit it. But that's where the developers are. They're fucking legends for being able to work with that stuff. But yeah, I always hear from the homies the pricing going up. But people I follow on Twitter, which I haven't been on Twitter much lately. By the way, I uninstalled the app on my phone. It was too much, and I'll reinstall it. You know how it goes, but it's like too much. It just activates you. Like if you look at it for a few seconds, you see something you don't like. Why am I going to give someone that power? That's why my phone's in Do Not Disturb all the time. I remember I was in orientation for Boston College, first week there, and some older professor's like, what are you talking about? Or he was a priest too, I believe. Yeah, he was like, when cell phones were starting to hit the scene, he's like, you mean you're gonna have a device in your pocket all the time where someone can reach you at any time of day whenever they want? Sounds like a nightmare. And I remember thinking like, dude, relax, you're old. And I was like, no, dude, that is an absolute nightmare. If you give someone your phone number and you don't have your phone in Do Not Disturb, you are giving them the power to take you out of your day at any moment whenever they want, which is a hell of a thing. Even if it's, it's not like people are sending me, mean messages or anything. I'm like, oh no, but it's like, dude, if you're in the flow and you see something and you're like, or you see someone has to have a discussion on something, like, dude, don't fucking take me out of this. That's why my phone's in Do Not Disturb all the time. And then I go to it when I want to check it. It's crazy when people get a text message and like their phone rings or their notification goes up. I'm like, oh my God, how do you live like that? It's fucking exhausting. My phone, I sleep with it out of my room. It's not anywhere near my bed. That shit is, you got to keep that shit on lock. But okay, anytime the crypto price goes up, people I follow on Twitter, anyway, don't really talk about the price much. They do a little bit, but I'm mostly concerned. People that talk about the price, I'm not, it's not, so I put yawn in the description. I'm not too concerned with the price. In fact, we riffed on that. It's what's being built, what's the technology, what's going on there. But it's funny, whenever the price goes up, people are like, yo, dude, what's going on? And I have the same thing, dude, I have no fucking idea. A lot of the times the price of Bitcoin, the price of Ether will go up when nothing is necessarily happening. Well, nothing obvious is happening. Like a lot of, put it this way, any new product launch, like when Augur V2 launched, or when Compound launched, like the price doesn't just go up on Ether. Maybe it's already baked in because they know these launches are coming, which is extremely possible. But it's like, it's not like where a company releases an earnings report and then the stock jumps or the stock goes down. There's no earnings report for these things. So it's just when the price goes up, it's like, who the fuck knows? All I can say is it's similar to the stock market where when the price goes up or down, it's the wisdom of the crowds. No one person necessarily knows what the fuck's going on. Sometimes it's good news, sometimes it's bad news that you can point to specifically. I remember when Imagine Technologies was no longer going to partner with Apple to do the GPU development on the iPhone. Their stock just market cap just eviscerated. That you can point to a news event. Sometimes stocks just go up, sometimes they just go down. And people that like to, anyone that claims like, oh, this thing's going to do this thing's going to do that. What you're basically saying is you're saying that what everyone else is going to, not only what all the shareholders currently what they're doing with that stock are going to do with it, but you're also saying all the people that could potentially buy it, what they're going to do with it. What the price they're going to want to buy it at. It's a fool's errand, dude. It's a fool's errand. Do I generally think that crypto prices are low relative to the shit that's happening? Yes. Given where the price has been, Bitcoin reached 19 chief. I think Ether hit like 1,500. That was in like 2018. That was in that run up. Were the prices a hell of a lot higher then with what those technologies were doing and what people were using them for? Yeah, they were way much higher. If you use that as a guide, prices should be a hell of a lot higher because a lot more, especially on Ethereum, things are being built, things are being done. So it's super interesting. Speaking of which, though, let's keep going here. I read an interesting article in The Economist. Again, I always shout out The Economist. It's a great publication. You get once a week magazine. You just read it. It's fucking epic. It's so good. It talks about all these different things. And I'm about to speaking of which, I forgot to riff on this. Let me riff on this before I get to the preservation of capital here. Talking about uncertainty, that's why part of the reason I lean on history is have you ever read a news article? Have you read an article or read about something that you are personally involved with? That you are personally maybe an expert in, or not even an expert in, that you just you work at this particular company, you work in this particular industry, you work in this particular location, you live in this location, you know this particular person that the article's about, and you're just like, that's not right. And you know what? You notice, and I'm not dogging on journalism here, I'm not doing that. What I am saying though is when people write, and it's not even just a journalist, it could be anyone doing research on anything. But whenever it's about something that I understand, a lot of the times, if it's a more mainstream kind of thing, if it's not a publication that's dedicated to that space, or someone that's dedicated to that space, a lot of times it's not necessarily that's wrong, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. There's a narrative that's tried to kind of forced into it. So all I'm saying is when you read something, so let's just take a news article, for example. You read a news article, when you're personally involved in it, you're like, that's not right. It's almost like every time, though, I'm personally involved in something, or yeah, because all the time people write about things I'm personally involved in. No. But I know personally about something that's being written about. Anytime that's the case, you're just like, and there's something, there's something usually off about it. You're like, what the hell is this? This isn't right. So I want you to take that frame, that feeling, and take it for when you read something that's fed to you that you don't know anything about, but you're taking the writer's word at 100%, and then you get mad about it, or you get super sad about it. You're like, oh, this is fucked up. I mean, it's a call to arms. We've all read something that got us pissed off. Just remember the time when you read that thing, when you were not, when you read that thing, when you were actually knew what the fuck was going on, when you were actually involved with it, when you're actually working in that industry, you're living in that area that they're talking about, when you were personally have personal firsthand knowledge of it. So all I'm going to say is be careful being super certain about things that you don't personally, aren't personally involved with. Listen, I'm not saying I'm not personally involved with, politics. I mean, I fucking vote, I read shit, but it's like, I'm not saying don't have an opinion on anything. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying be careful with that opinion. Just be a little bit more measured. So part of that is, and I talk about being born into the society, then just come and just start dog shitting all of it. Part of it is maybe things are the way they are. And I'm not saying don't change things or try to improve things. That's not what I'm saying. But maybe some things are the way they are because people before you thought about them. Our ancestors, previous generations had thought about them and did it a certain way. So all I'm saying is, I think generally people think, or not generally, but a lot of people think, I don't know, a lot of you like to say, oh, like things are going down the tubes. And like, yeah, not everything's perfect. But dude, look around, bro. When has the vast majority of people been more free? When have the vast majority of people been fucking connected to the internet and disease rates down, infant mortality down? And I'm not saying this means that everything's perfect and we're just full steam ahead. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is we're on the right track. We don't need to throw out the whole system and say, wow, this whole capitalist thing or this whole democracy thing or this whole whatever thing didn't work out. We need to throw out we need to throw the whole thing out and start from scratch. No, we need to tweak it. More than tweak. Hell, we need to. There's things we can absolutely do. We're fucking up the planet for sure. Dude, you ever go look at animals or go in the mountains, take a hike, you just look at these animals, they're just trying to fucking live their lives. They're not a human, but they're trying to live their lives. And yes, I the first person to say humans are fucking, humans are my favorite animal. I'm not someone that, but it's a living thing, bro. Dude, you know what's crazy? I am not religious. I'm not religious at all. I think there's some good things that come from it, sense of community. I think, there's good things that come from it. I'm an atheist. I said that many times on the show. To my friends who are religious, people I know they're religious. We talk about living things, God's creatures, dude. Everything's a living thing. If you believe God created it, people are pretty willing to just kill shit or like not really care that, an animal is fucking, getting treated the way it is, so you can have your fucking meat. And listen, I'm not a vegetarian, not a vegan, but I will say this, I cannot morally justify, unless you're, you know where the meat's coming from. I really can't, I don't think anyone can morally justify eating meat. Unless they know they're paying top dollar and they know where that's coming from and they know that hog or that cow had a good life or whatever. I absolutely, you can't justify it. You really fucking can't. I can't justify it. I still eat meat. I try not to build it into my system like too regularly. Shout out Newhouse taught me that. Just reduce. I think people are focused too much on, you got to go vegetarian or vegan. No. If everyone reduced 50%, that's the same as half the people going vegetarian and the other half continuing the way it is. So I just try to reduce here. Anyway, that was a little bit of a fucking tangent there. But yeah, there's things. Yeah, I was talking about the environment. Yeah, there's things we need to change absolutely. But maybe maybe your parents know what they're talking about. Maybe your grandparents kind of know what they're talking about because all I'm saying is give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for the system that's here and be like, at least if you're gonna dog it, ask, okay, well, why is it this way? Why is it this way before you nuke it? And then guess what? if you do that mental exercise, why is it this way? And you figure out, holy shit, this is even worse than I thought. Boom, then it gives you more ammunition. I try to be careful. I try not to come on the show and get people fired up about shit that I don't know about or think that they should get fired up about. I very rarely say, yo, you should think this, and like be like, yo. I try to keep it pretty uncertain, but on the other hand, I think it's easier to have a conversation when you put a stake in the ground, have an opinion. So for a mental exercise, and for the listeners, so if I'm not 100% on something, I'll still maybe I'm pretty sure about something. I'll just say it like it is, and I'm not constantly going to say, well, maybe this, well, maybe that. It's like that's implied. Who the fuck knows what's going on? But I like to remind everyone now and again. Anyway, okay, preservation of capital. Just this is something I read an Economist article the other day. Wow, that was where that tangent went. Read an Economist article. This was actually it was on the cover. How the super wealthy invest. And one of the big takeaways from there is I never understood, and for the 99% of us, how you invest your money. I talk about it all the time on the show. Buy the market. Just buy an index fund. Don't try to do anything special. Don't necessarily. I don't recommend buying property unless you plan to live there. Don't use it as investment. The stock market. Just look at history. That's what I said. Look at history. Stock market is the surest way to build wealth. There's nothing more certain than that. Besides, of course, that's part of it. The other part is fucking, working hard. Try to work on your professional career. That's just as important if you're trying to build wealth. But 99% of people just buy the stock market. Don't worry about anything else. You do that through your 401k. Most people do that through your 401k. You're an IRA. That's the way you should invest. I have an article. Search the lowest hanging fruit, no gradient. Search it. I kind of walk through everything there. And I didn't invent any of this shit. I just read from what other people said. And this isn't anything crazy. Jack Bogle, The Little Book of Common Sense Investing. Check that out. Anyway, so that's why it blows my mind when there's this Bloomberg. Bloomberg is kind of clickbaity sometimes. Bloomberg said, this was a while ago. They said billionaires increased their wealth 30% in 2019 or something like that. And I'm like, brother, look at the stock market. The stock market was up 32%. Your average person had the means to build more wealth than your average billionaire. And why are people billionaires? I'm not going to go on this whole defending billionaires thing, but why are people billionaires? Because they own companies. So it makes sense. It's not because they have a bunch of cash. They built a company, and they have a piece of that company, and the company went increased in value. That's why people are billionaires. It's not from salary. It's not because they're getting paid a shit ton. That's part of it. I think Sundar Pichai makes like $76 million a year, something like that. It's fucking ludicrous. It's insane. It's because they own companies. Anyway, so of course, billionaires own companies. They own stock just like you and me. So of course, they go up 30%. Yeah, they're going to go up 30%. They're going to go where the market goes. And so it's a clickbaity title because anyone has the means to put money. Not everyone has extra disposable income. I understand that, but we have the means to. Meaning we have the ability to create an account online and do this. And make a Betterment account, big fan of Betterment or Vanguard, etc. So it always blew my mind when families would have home offices. Rich families would have family offices that would invest their money, buy property, use invest in venture capital, kind of spread their money all over the place. I'm like, well, why aren't you just investing in the stock market? That's the surest way to build wealth. Even more sure, people think that VC, for example, people think that VC is the best one way to get super rich. Most companies fail, and in fact, there's been a lot of studies on this. In some years, some chunks of time, the S&P 500 outperforms a basket of VC firms. That's just the way it works. And over the long run, and plus the fees are higher with VCs, and it's harder to get access to that. You have to be an accredited investor, which means like you have to make like $300,000 the past 3 years each year, or have $1 million in net assets. It's hard to become a. What's funny about that? I saw a tweet. It's harder to invest in a company than it is to just gamble all your money away. Like, you don't have to be an accredited gambler. Anyone can go to a casino and just nuke themselves. And to be fair, those are state laws. But it is kind of funny. So anyway, so if you ever wonder why, you're like the super rich, they own like all this shit, houses, pieces of businesses, blah, 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 and spread out their money. If You're like, well, why the fuck? Like, if I could do that, I could be rich. Well, no, you'd probably make less money, almost certainly, if you spread your money out that way. And a lot of us don't even have access to that. The difference is, and this is the key, this is something that kind of blew my mind. Billionaires, super wealthy, are not concerned with making more money. Believe it. If they were concerned with making more money, they would be, they would just put all their money in the stock market and let it rip. But they diversify. They diversify, and why? They diversify because they're more concerned with the preservation of capital more than they are with making more money. If you have $1 billion, you can put a quarter of that in the stock market, a quarter of that somewhere else, quarter of that somewhere else, you want to spread it out, because if any one of those things just goes to zero, which it almost certainly won't, but if any one of those, you're still going to have a shit ton of capital. Money is a living and breathing thing. Even if you're not rich, it's a living and breathing thing. Every dollar you have is it's energy. Money's the same as energy. It's the same as time. It's oxygen. You can put that money, it's not a piece of paper. You can put that, that's why I tell people to invest. Put that money to work. You invest in companies, you invest in the stock market very easily, and that money works for you. It's constantly compounding on itself. So money's a living, breathing thing. So anyway, I just think that's a cool thing to riff on, because I think a lot of people feel left out. They're like, oh no, like these family offices have access to all these investments, and yeah, they do. They have access to things we don't. But we also have access, the public markets that anyone can have access to is the surest way to build wealth, and that's a beautiful thing. That's an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. And thanks to Jack Bogle. It was funny, when Jack Bogle died, there were two people on Twitter that don't agree on anything. They're like, one's on the left, one's on the right. One's kind of like left-leaning, kind of commie. The other person's like a total free market hardo. And they both gave condolences to Jack Bogle's death, because he invented the index fund. What does the index fund allow you to do? It allows your regular investor to earn their return of the market, to earn their fair return of the market with low fees. It's an amazing, amazing invention that allows your average American, your average person anywhere in the world who has access to these financial products to retire or build wealth. The fact that you can build wealth, and shout out Pat Dales, he and who's been a friend of the podcast. He's been on the podcast, one of the most legendary insurers of all time. Wow, I forgot what I was going to say, because I was going on a tangent. Anyway, they're not fucking concerned. Sometimes I need to go back and listen to what the fuck I'm doing. This is hilarious. If someone could shout at me right now. Is someone in the chat right now? That would actually be chill. What was I talking about? Large D in the building. Let's go. We got 4 concurrent viewers. I'm looking at the chat right now if you want to tell me what I was just thinking. Saying Pat Daly. I forget, honestly. But we got people in the chat. There's about a 10-second delay here, so we'll see if anyone bails me out with what I was just talking about. Shout out Lars. Thanks for joining, Brother Beast. I love it. Anyway, the way the super wealthy invest, Jack Bogle, the guy's a legend. Anyway, that's just, it's it's an amazing thing that we all have access to that, to invest in that. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, let's take it. Okay, so we got, we're riffing for a while here. Let's talk about TikTok. And again, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. Microsoft was talking about buying. I'm not going to get too much into the nitty-gritty here. There's a lot here. Oh, Economist article. Will the thrill Conway, my fucking boy? Yes, I was talking about the Economist article. Thank you, Conway. I appreciate that. But there was a tangent I went on, which was the issue. Thank you, Conway. You're my fucking boy. I appreciate you. Anyone that give me their time listening to this shit, you're my boy. Okay. My boy's going to law school. It's epic. He's going to do great things. Shout out Will the Thrill Conway, legend. Shout out Texas. Shout out Linz. Okay, here's the deal. TikTok. Let's talk about TikTok. Okay, so there's again, I want to. Ben Thompson of Stratechery is the best writer I've seen on this. He's amazing. He's so smart. I love super smart people that I can just read and trust, and I don't love everything they say all the time. but I love most of it. I just think it's epic. I think a lot of what they're talking about is just fucking epic, and it really cuts through the core. Ben Thompson, Benedict Evans. Anyway, here's just two things I want to talk about this TikTok acquisition, or excuse me, that possible. There's all this TikTok drama. The first, and Ben Thompson's the first one to point this out. People say, "Oh, look what the U.S. government's doing. Like they're being, why are they, treating China like this, or why are they playing games like this, economic games like this?" It's, this is something. China struck first. Okay, China built a Great Firewall. China over a decade ago, and they've only made it more and more intense. They've blocked out Western companies. They've made it impossible to compete in their market. They've made it impossible for foreign firms to compete in their market, specifically internet companies. There's no internet companies, American internet companies in China. Maybe some super small ones. The major big tech company in China that's allowed is Apple, and that's because Apple bends over backwards and works with the Chinese government. Full stop. It's on Apple's website. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. They work with a cloud provider there, which I think is, at the very least, needs to be a hell of a lot more questioned. The first thing is this. Yeah, China has been doing this for decades. For decades. Being very unfair in the world, in the economic market. And again, so let's just start with that. So So if the U.S. bans one app or does, this is something that isn't even close. And do I think we should do it? I don't know. I don't really know on this. I don't know. We should be concerned about what those algorithms are being. When an app gets super popular, we need to be concerned with how those algorithms are being. Because ultimately, TikTok, owned by ByteDance, they're beholden to the Chinese party. Every single company in China is beholden to the Chinese Communist Party. Imagine, for the Americans listening, imagine if a Democrat Party, Republican Party that had control of the government, and every company had to have, that party had to have carte blanche access to anything the government, that company had at any given time. You need a warrant in this country. There's due process. Now, I've talked about the Snowden leaks and talking about eavesdropping, and that's a huge blow. I think to freedom here. But I'm not going to talk about, it's false equivalence to say that means we're the fucking that we don't have laws here and rules and due process. We absolutely do. But so I just wanted, that's the first thing. China has been doing really bad shit for years, especially on the competition front. Here's the other thing I want people to realize. The flip side of this. Trump is not a capitalist. Well, it's funny, people dog on capitalism, or people support capitalism. You know what's funny is if you actually look up what capitalism is, if you look up the definition, I sometimes do this. Look at the definition of certain words like bigot or, like xenophobic, race. These terms that get tossed around, and you just think, oh yeah, that's like a bad person, but it's like, look up what it actually means. It's interesting. It might be different than what you think. Capitalism is in and of itself. It just means people private ownership of the means of production and property. That's all capitalism is. It's private ownership over businesses, and property. That's all. I mean, it doesn't really. I think a lot of the things people think capitalism means there's no regulation. No. It just says that people have the ability to own business. It doesn't mean there's no regulation. Capitalism is very loose on the details. It just says people can have ownership of things, whether that's a business or a piece of property. I don't think that's very controversial. Capitalism is the wrong thing to dog. It's the wrong thing to dog because typically when people dog capitalism, they're in support of something else, giving more government control. Maybe they're a communist or maybe they're socialist or something like that. Well, not a communist. But I love just labeling people based on their parties. Like, oh, this is what you are. I have a homie that does that. It's like, you're this, you're that. It's like, okay, dude. It's a little. People have different opinions on different things. But fucking, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so it's short on details. So, of course, there should be fucking regulation. Of course, there should be. So anyway, but Trump is in capitalist in the sense of the word of like free market and that. If you want to use that, Trump is absolutely an anti-capitalist. It's not even close. His administration is anti-capitalist. And what do I mean by that? He's anti-capitalist in a different way that Sanders is anti-capitalist. Sanders is anti-capitalist because he believes business is evil. And a fundamental level, if you believe business is evil, and they're constantly just trying to they're just trying to exploit. Businesses do bad things all the time. We do need regulation. We do need to hold them accountable. We do need to ask questions of market dominance and is it going to hurt consumers if one company is too strong? Absolutely, we need to have those conversations. But at a fundamental level, and I saw a tweet on this, if you are just anti-business, you think business is just evil, fundamentally that means you're against Barbara starting a bake shop. Why are you against Barbara starting a bake shop? I saw a tweet that said something like that. Why are you against Barbara starting a bake shop and turning that bake shop into something? And again, it's a little tongue-in-cheek because most people aren't, they're not against little Barbara. They're against Amazon that's going to compete with, that's going to put up a vending machine next to Barbara and put her out of business. And I get that, but fundamentally, that's what I believe people should be able to start their own business. I believe that business should be able to get big, which there's still dynamism in this country. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, the countries in the top 5 of market cap didn't exist, or rather they existed, but they weren't in the top 5. Now there are, and I bet you in another 15 years there's going to be a different set of companies. And if they're not, then we need to probably have a serious conversation about a dynamism in this country and competition and things like that. But the market is still competitive generally, and there's so anyway, but Sanders is anti-capitalist in that regard, or people on the left are anti-capitalist that way. Trump's anti-capitalist in the way that he believes that the government should be making deals with private companies. And why is it anti-capitalist? Because the government should not tip the scales of what private enterprise is doing. And why shouldn't they? Because when the government tips the scales, it's not about who makes the best product, which company has the best innovation, which company has the best management, which company has the best this, the best that. It's who in the White House, who happens to be in the White House, likes or wants to help or wants to do favors for. That is also extremely anti-capitalist. And it hurts consumers, it hurts the market, it makes people not want to do business in the United States, it hurts startups. That's why, so when Trump says, I want to talk about what Trump said when he talked about Microsoft. He's like working with Microsoft to try to help them purchase TikTok, which is not, it should not be done. That's not what the President of the United States is. The President of the United States, as Ben Thompson said, the government's job is to stay out of it, keep the market fair, keep it fair, and let companies do their thing. Not just because it's fair, but because that's actually going to lead to the best result and allow people. Think of it this way: if similar to the Indian market and China market, China more so than India, to do business in those countries, you need to be much more in China. You need to have a connection to the government. What does that do? It prevents foreign investment. And what does lower foreign investment mean? Less competition. What does that mean? Worse products, higher prices. That's what that means. So it prevents people from wanting to do business in a country if you have to be if the person in the White House has to like you. It defeats the whole purpose. So I'm going to read a quote from Trump. He said this: "It's a little bit like the landlord tenant. Without a lease, the tenant has nothing, so they pay what's called key money, or they pay something," Trump said. "But the United States should be reimbursed or should be paid a substantial amount of money because without the United States, they don't have anything, at least having to do with the 30%. So he's talking about allowing Microsoft to make this deal. The government has taxes. And guess what? Those taxes apply to every single business evenly, depending on how much money the business makes and depending on what industry. I mean, there's regulations depending on the industry, but generally, a company can go into an industry or a company can compete and know what's going to happen. When you have individual deals being made, and Stan Druckenmiller said this about, and I heard this in an interview with him on Bloomberg. He does it like once a year, and it's epic. And he said he's the one that he's like, Trump's anti-capitalist. It's not about. One of the main things he says, businesses like when they can look at the future and have a reasonable understanding of what the future is going to be like, because then they can invest, they can build new factories, they can build new, open new offices, they can hire more people and know that reasonably the future is going to be. They have an expectation what that future is going to be. If you have individual deals being made on a deal by deal basis, and people in the White House favoring certain companies on a whim, that helps incumbents, that helps big companies, and it hurts startups, and it prevents people from understanding what could possibly happen in the future. Maybe one day, Trump's feeling nice and he wants to help Microsoft out. Maybe the next day he says, go fuck yourself. So this is why when people say Trump is like, or people think, capitalism gone wrong, like this is what the problem is. He's not a capitalist. He does not believe, and he believes that trade is a zero-sum game, and that we need to beat China because we export more to them. They export more to us than we export to them. Like, no. Before I'm an American, I'm a human, and I care deeply about humans as a whole. What's going to get us that? That's why I'm a big fan of globalization. I'm a big fan of allowing countries to trade, lowering barriers to trade, because what we've seen is that when that happens, it helps everyone. It helps everyone. Companies compete more. They compete for jobs. They compete against each other's products. They compete. They compete for talent. It just helps. And in any one area, yes, an industry might get absolutely obliterated. And there's certain reasons that you want to subsidize. For example, farming in the United States is subsidized by the government. Well, I think we shouldn't outsource all our farming. Like, if another country can do it better, which America has a great arable land, it's a legend. But if another country could do it better, we wouldn't want to just stop food production altogether because there's national security concerns there. We need to eat. We need to make sure we need to keep that under our roof, our purview. So I'm not saying make everything but I am saying that trade rises all boats. So I don't view trade as I don't necessarily want the United States. I'm like, the United States needs to be the superpower and like the biggest economy. I would love if that wasn't I would love if everyone on the planet was fucking trading and moving the needle forward, and we were all one big fucking happy family. Okay, that would be amazing. But the reason, I don't have a problem with the UK having the biggest economy or Italy. I have a problem when it's a country like China, which is super, essentially they're anti-freedom. They're an ethno state centered around they're centered around their culture and their which every country is to an extent, but they're to a whole nother level, such that you talk about we've talked about a lot of this on what's going on with the Uyghur Muslims in China. It's absolutely abhorrent, and there's a lot of racist shit that the CCP does in that country that is absolutely appalling. They're not. I don't want. Do I want that to be them to have the biggest stick and then wield the most power? No. But as soon as they're not like that, then boom, let's let it rip. Let's work together. Let's all get to Mars. Let's fucking do it. So that's in any country, and that's why the experiment of America is so epic. Any country that's centered around a certain a certain ethnicity, which America is not. Many countries are. I think people and there's no national language in the United States, for example. Yes, most people speak English, but I am like, that is some old world shit. That is some old world shit being centered around, okay, people that look like me, that's people that look like me and that think the same way that I do, that have the same religion. There's many countries like that. Anything like that, I'm like, we go back to the foundational principle of allowing people to do what they want to do and not being inhibited. And a lot of governments inhibit people from doing what they want to do, or inhibit others from coming into their country and living the way they want to live. Which if you allow people to come and live the way they want to live, that's why it's cool going, and this isn't only in the United States, many countries have that, but you have things like, you have areas where there's a certain culture, like in Glendale, my hometown, for example, where I'm from, believe it's the second highest Armenian population behind Armenia. That's epic. That's really cool. I think part of that is similar climate to Armenia, kind of that Mediterranean, kind of similar latitude, and the they came over here, fucking laid roots, and that's fucking epic. That's an amazing thing. We need to honor that. Now, certainly, yeah. Now, so that's where I anyway. That's where I am on this whole thing. So anytime you hear Trump talking about getting involved in this TikTok thing from an acquisition standpoint, not necessarily from a national security standpoint, because we absolutely need to. Oh shit! Look at that plane. That's epic. Anytime, we do need to ask like what the algorithms are in the TikTok that are being fed to millions of Americans when they're preventing people from talking bad about China, or they were quelling Black Lives Matter stuff early on, which they're not. I don't believe they are anymore. But who knows? It's a black box. We don't know the algorithm. If you mention a certain thing, could just fucking nuke your channel and not get your video as widely circulated. These are questions that need to be discussed. Okay. Damn. Once again, we did not get to this Jesse Walden thing. But let's, okay, because I don't have enough time because I really want to focus on that. So I'll have to start off with that next time. We've got a couple minutes here. Let me just end with this because we're talking about China and, like how to deal with China. So again, look at, you can't just copy history and expect to have the same result. But a similar thing was when the Soviet Union, communist state, Cold War, Soviet Union fell apart. How did they do that? Well, the United States got an entire alliance together. I forget if I spoke about this last week, but anyway, we only got a couple minutes, so I'm going to riff on it again. How's that? They created a trading network that blocked out the Soviet Union. They all became rich because they all traded together. Like, that's what happened. That's how post-World War II, Bretton Woods Agreement, look this shit up. That's what happened. We created kind of a global world trade order. The United States said we're going to protect trade routes. Everyone's going to trade with everyone. There's an international oil market for the first time, because people could trade it all over the world. And it's actually part of the reason the Middle East has become has made a whole bunch of fucking money, because they can trade their goods because the trading lanes all around the world are protected by the U.S. Navy. That shut the Soviet Union out. They weren't allowed to be part of that system. They were insular, and guess what? They lost. China's different. China's different because they're a much bigger piece of the economy. I think they're 17%, whereas the Soviet Union was like, they were basically shut out. They're probably some percent of the economy, but China has a lot bigger. They're much more powerful in terms of economically than China. Than the Soviet Union ever was. So shutting them out isn't easy. And I'm not even saying we should do that. The economists had a good piece on this. But we do need to. There is a playbook for at least dealing with this. Now maybe that means taxing China in a certain way because of what they're doing to the Uyghur Muslims, because that's a fast car down there, baby, Lamborghini SUV. Because the way they're not allowing other companies. It's not just the United States companies can't compete in China. It's European countries. They're very, and the way what they do with their currency. There's a lot of bad things, unfair things that they do. That we do. The United States, along with her allies, do not have a united front on, and Trump has done a hell of a bad job uniting a front on that. And Trump says America first. America first, okay, sounds great. What's America first? What does that mean? America first actually means working with our allies, helping our allies, having good relationships is going to put America's interest first, is only going to help us. That's one of the things that I think people don't realize about China. People are like, oh, I'm afraid of China. China has no allies. The United States has many allies. And we've earned that trust. Many countries have many allies. China does not. It takes alliances to become a hegemon, and that's what we need. We need a united front here, which is why, yes, Trump is constantly dogging out, saying they're not paying enough. Yeah, do they need to increase spending? Sure, absolutely, I'm down. They've agreed to it, but they're just not doing it. So that's a hell of a thing. And U.S. spends a lot of money every year, keeping troops in Europe and making sure that our European allies are protected. It's like, okay, we'll meet us halfway. Yeah, I get that, but there's a uniting way about that. thinking everything's about a deal and us versus them all the time is not the way that the free world is going to be able to deal with China. And listen, I like to keep things in perspective as I wrap up the show. I always want to say this. Sometimes I feel bad. It's like, oh, fuck, I'm always dogging on China because maybe people think I'm not looking at inward at the United States and the problems we have here. Listen, I totally understand we have problems and that democracy, well, we're not going to throw democracy out, of course, but yes, there's things that the West can do better. Free markets can do better. Not even the West, just any country that is being a fair player on the world stage, and is actually concerned with kind of human society moving forward. But when I see how powerful China is, and on an economic scale, they would have to have the same growth rate for 30 years to pass the United States, and they have no allies, and they don't have a navy anywhere near capable of the U.S. They don't have any allies. So I'm not worried like, oh, fear China. What I am saying though is they are a hugely powerful state that is doing horrible things. They are doing horrible things. They're not competing fairly. They've interned individuals, Kazakhs and Uyghur Muslims, because of their ethnicity, because of their belief system. You can't even religion in China is. You can't even practice religion in China because they don't want you to swear to something above the state. That you are the state. You are the people around you. That's what it is. And that type of thing for a country to be this. Again, I think I said this all before, but to throw comparisons to Nazi Germany around, I don't think is with what they're doing with some reports of million Uyghur Muslims. It's crazy. So I'm going to point out, when I see bad shit, we're gonna riff on it. Okay, this is gonna be very interesting how this all plays out. We're gonna end with one more thing. Bill Clinton thought the internet would just bring, and kind of Western ideals would just bring China towards Freedom Town, would just kind of open them up. We've seen the opposite. It's been a tool. The internet in China has been a tool of censorship. It's been a way to keep businesses out from competing in China. And look at the NBA, huge market. I think China's their biggest market, and we've dogged on the NBA for how they're dealing with China, given all this free Hong Kong stuff. But China's not becoming more free. They're not. And we'll see what's going to go on these next couple decades. Whatever it is, it's going to take a couple decades. But whatever the solution is, whatever it is, it's going to take free countries, free people everywhere uniting together. And I want the Chinese people to have freedom. I want China to be successful. I want them to be a fair player on the world stage. I would love that. I want them to not try to undermine freedom and undermine free ideals. So we'll see how it all works out. I'm talking a lot about China lately, so we're going to talk more about cryptocurrency next time. We'll see what the deal is. If you want me to talk about something, if you see something in the news and be like, yo, this is right up your alley, text me or email me, dick@nogradient.com. Hit me up. Would love to hear from you because, yeah, I've been grinding a lot and frankly haven't had as much time as I like to read these things, but I still like to come here and riff. We sit outside for an hour, we riff. So, okay, we do this every week. Once a week. Right now it's 7 a.m. Wednesdays, Pacific time. We stream live on YouTube, and it's also available wherever podcasts are available. Just search No Gradient wherever you get your podcasts, No Space Gradient. This is Dick Lucas signing off. You know the drill. You know the time. It's been a hell of a journey. Wow, we're not at over an hour yet. I love it. Okay, thanks a lot for joining. This was epic. Keep staying with it. Lean on history, people. Lean on history. Double down on the things you know for sure. Be careful about those things and hold a level of uncertainty with the things you don't. And skepticism. Okay, this has been chill. This has been epic. Thanks for joining us in the new place. We love it. Maybe we'll be on the beach next time. We'll see. Let me know what you think. dick@nogradient.com. Honored you came to riff. Peace out, baby.